Beauvoir comments on Housewives. She says housewives have in common a fatigue from a never-ending battle that never leads to victory. Similar to the torment of Sisyphus, day after day, one must wash dishes, dust furniture, and mend clothes that will eventually get dirty, dusty, and torn again. As soon as things are used, they are dirtied or destroyed. She never gains the sense she is conquering a positive good by cleaning the house, but a never-ending battle with the evil of uncleanliness. She often submits to this task of cleaning the house in rage. As the wife maintains the home, the husband only notices disorder and negligence and takes order and neatness for granted. Preparing meals is more positive work and often more enjoyable than cleaning. It involves going to the market. She can find some relief from the loneliness of the household. The husband attaches more importance to a well-prepared meal than a clean house. The triumphant moment of the cook is when she places a successful dish on the table. She is proud to feel she is the creator of a perfect moment. She is the one bringing the guests together. She is the dispenser of happiness. But the frequency of it quickly changes the joy of cooking into a tired routine. Done every day, the work becomes monotonous and mechanical. It is filled with waiting for the water to boil, waiting for the roast to be cooked just right. There are long periods of passivity and emptiness. Most of the time, cooking is accomplished in boredom. Beauvoir says, the wife lies to herself. The young wife rarely admits her feelings to herself with such sincerity. To love her husband and to be happy is a duty to herself and society. This is what her family expects of her. If her parents were against the marriage, she wants to prove how wrong they were. She persuades herself she feels great love for her husband. This passion takes a more possessive and jealous form the less sexually satisfied she is. Beauvoir talks about the wife and mother as expendable. In the first years of marriage, the wife lulls herself with illusions. She tries to admire her husband unconditionally. She tries to feel she is indispensable to him and her children. But then she sees her husband can get along without her. Her children are made to break away from her. They are always more or less thankless. She finds herself alone and abandoned with nothing to do for herself. Beauvoir says the man enjoys being in charge. In the evening, after a difficult day dealing with his equals and obeying his superiors, he likes to feel absolutely superior and dispense incontestable truths to his wife. Using his wife to shore up his confidence, he tells her about the day's events. He tells her how he wins over his adversaries. To increase his authority, he likes to exaggerate feminine incapacity. All the resentments accumulated in his childhood throughout his life, accumulated daily among other men who are around him, he unloads at home by unleashing his authority over his wife. He acts out violence. He issues orders in a severe tone. He yells and hammers the table. The drama is a daily reality for the wife. Beauvoir says that marriage leads to boredom. Even those marriages that work well, where the spouses compromise and do not antagonize each other, still cannot escape boredom. They have nothing else to share with one another after a few months or years. Marriage dooms the wife to repetition and routine. Real activity, real work, are the privilege of men. Her only occupations are sometimes exhausting, but never fulfill her. Beauvoir advocates open marriage. She says a man can be an excellent husband and still be unfaithful. His extramarital affairs do not prevent him from carrying out a friendly communal life with his wife. It could be the same for the wife. She often wishes to share in her husband's existence, create a home with him for their children, and still experience other embraces. A pact of freedom and sincerity would abolish this defect of marriage. Repressed women make ill-tempered and aggressive wives, sadistic mothers, and fanatical housekeepers. She should not have to repress her desires for other men. A woman often graciously accepts her husband having other women. She is even flattered. Beauvoir promotes divorce. She says the ideal would be that each human being, perfectly self-sufficient, be attached to another by the free consent of their love alone. Beauvoir notes that the husband has more power over his wife through income. Traditional form of marriage is changing, and there is more equality between spouses. As long as the man has economic responsibility for the couple, equality is just an illusion. He determines where they live due to the demands of his job. The standards of living is fixed according to his income. Relations and friendships depend on his profession. Divorce is only an abstract possibility if she does not have the means to earn her own living. There are young women who are trying to be financially independent, but seldom do they persevere in their studies or in their jobs for long. They know their work will most often be sacrificed to their husband's career. Their salary will only help out at home. The birth of a child forces her to confine herself to the role of matron. It is still very difficult to reconcile work and motherhood. Beauvoir discusses pregnancy. She says woman experiences pregnancy as an enrichment and mutilation. The fetus is a parasite, exploiting her. She possesses it and is possessed by it. She is proud of it, yet also feels like the plaything of obscure forces. There are women who are very flirtatious and grasp themselves essentially as erotic objects. They suffer from their bodies being deformed and incapable of arousing desire as a pregnant woman. Pregnancy is not enrichment for them, but a diminishing of their self. When women finally give birth, there is a surprising sadness and disappointment in seeing him outside. She does not even recognize him. She is expected to be familiar right away. But she has no common past with this little stranger. She is stupefied by her indifference. The joy he is finally here is mingled with the regret that this is all that he is. There are also many mothers who are terrified of their new responsibilities at the birth of their child. During pregnancy, no initiative was demanded of the mother. Now in front of her is a person who has rights. Some women happily caress their babies while they are still in the hospital, but upon returning home, they start to regard them as burdens. Even nursing brings them no joy. They worry about ruining their breasts. The baby's mouth hurts them. He seems to be sucking her strength, life, and happiness from them. The infant inflicts a harsh servitude on the mother. He is like a tyrant. She feels hostility for this little individual who threatens her flesh, her freedom, her whole self. This is why cold, unsatisfied, melancholic women who expect a child to be a companion or provide warmth and excitement to them are always deeply disappointed. These examples all prove there is no such thing as a maternal instinct. The mother's attitude is defined by her situation and by the way she accepts it. If the circumstances are favorable, the mother will find herself enriched by the child. Like the woman in love, the mother is delighted to feel needed by her child. However, unlike the woman in love, there is no reciprocity. The woman is not before a man, a hero, a demigod. She is before a fragile body. The infant possesses no value, and he can bestow no value. The mother must expect no compensation for her generosity. A great risk for the infant is that the mother he is tied and bound to is almost always an unfulfilled woman. Some ways she is unfulfilled is that she is sexually unsatisfied. She feels socially inferior to man. She has no hold on the world. She tries to compensate for her frustrations through the child. Given how many desires, revolts, and pretensions she secretly harbors, it is frightening that helpless little children are given over to her Just as when the mother both pampered and tortured her dolls as a girl, this behavior is symbolic for what is a bitter reality for the child. A mother who beats her child does not only beat the child, but, in a way, she is taking her revenge on the world. There are women who love to dominate their child. When the child is tiny, they will treat the baby like a toy or a doll. Later on, they will only want a little slave who will blindly obey them. They will vainly show off the child like a trained pet. Mothers have self-indulgent, violent, and tyrannical tirades against their children, the same way that husbands let themselves go with their wife when they get home from work. This self-indulgence is more dangerous because wives can better defend themselves against their husband than the child can defend himself against his mother. Thus, it would be better for the child if his mother were a complete person, not a mutilated one. It would be better for the child to be left infinitely less to his parents than he is now. It'd be better for the child if his studies and amusements take place with other children under control of adults whose links with him are only impersonal and dispassionate. If the woman's love life has made her hostile to men, she will find satisfaction in dominating her male baby, reduced to his infantile figure. She wants him to be infinite and yet fit in the palm of her hand, dominating the whole world and kneeling before her. She wants him to be soft and sedentary. She forbids sports and friends. She makes him unsure of himself because she wants to have him for herself. But still, she is disappointed if he does not at the same time become an adventurer, a champion, a genius she can be proud of. Women prefer having a boy even if he is more difficult. Because of the prestige women attribute to men and the privileges they hold, many women wish for a son. The son will be a chief, a leader of men, a soldier, a creator. He will impose his will on the face of the earth. His mother will share in his immortality. The houses she did not build, the countries she did not explore, the books she did not read, he will give to her. Through him, she will possess the world, but only by possessing her son. Beauvoir says most women detest their feminine condition. They experience it in resentment. They wish for or accept a daughter with the bitter pleasure of finding another victim. At the same time, they feel guilt at having brought her into the world. At times, the mother will try to impose exactly her own destiny on her daughter. At other times, she fiercely forbids her to resemble her. As her daughter grows up, the mother wants to reduce her daughter's freedom. The mother sees her daughter wishing to go her own way from her as a mark of detestable ingratitude. The pleasure man savors in being absolutely superior to women is a kind of pleasure that women only get to experience toward her children, especially her daughters. The mother feels frustrated if her daughter's independence results in the mother's autonomy being taken away. Her daughter's independence makes her feel abandoned and misunderstood. The mother likes to rule over her feminine universe without competition. The mother wants to be unique, irreplaceable. Yet the mother's young daughter makes it so that she is no longer unique. The mother cannot accept that her daughter can really be a substitute for her. The mother scolds her daughter sternly if, after being away for 2 days, she finds the household in disorder. But she also goes into fits of anger if she so happens that family life continued along well without her. It is even more intolerable that her daughter assert herself. The mother detests the girlfriends her daughter confides in. The mother criticizes them, prevents her daughter from seeing them too often, or even radically forbids her to be with them. All influence that is not of the mother's own is bad. The mother has a particular animosity towards women her own age who her daughter turns her affection to. like teachers or the mothers of her friends. The mother envies all the amusements that wrench her daughter away from the boredom of the household. The older the mother gets, the more this bitterness eats away at the mother's heart. Beauvoir says motherhood can only bring joy to the woman capable of disinterestedly wanting the happiness of another without any reward for herself. Beauvoir cites Helene Deutsch, who believes women can successfully accomplish motherhood under the condition that it is freely assumed and sincerely desired. Deutsch says the woman must be in a psychological, moral, and material situation that allows her to bear this responsibility. If not, the consequences can be disastrous. In particular, it is criminal to advise having a child as a remedy for sadness or stress. It causes unhappiness for mother and child. Only a balanced, healthy woman, conscious of her responsibilities, is capable of being a good mother. Sex with one's husband, homemaking, and motherhood are parts of the whole of a woman's calling. But the different functions conflict with one another. It is very difficult to remain sexually desirable with chapped hands from cleaning and a body deformed from pregnancies. A woman in love often feels resentment towards the children who ruin her seduction and deprive her of her husband's caresses. If she is deeply maternal, she will be jealous of the man who also claims the children as his. The perfect homemaker sees the children as the enemy of waxed floors. Maternal love is often lost in the reprimand and outbursts that underlie the concern for a well-kept home. It is unsurprising that the woman torn between these contradictory responsibilities often spends her day in a state of nervousness and bitterness. Feminine friendships she is able to make or keep are precious for a woman. They are very different from the ones men have. When they meet, they find the strength to shake off their chains. They negate male sexual dominion by confiding their male sexual failures and clumsiness. They contest the moral and intellectual superiority of their husbands and men in general. What makes these relationships valuable is their truthfulness. When confronting man, woman is always on stage. She lies when pretending to accept herself as the inessential other. With other women, she can relax and be herself. While women feel more solidarity with one another than men do, the element of hostility comes into play. The element of competition comes into play. A housewife has a more intimate relationship with her maid than a man does with his chauffeur. But the housewife and the maid also have hostile rivalries between them. The maid frees the housewife from actual work, but the housewife still wants to assume the responsibility and credit for the work. The housewife wants to think of herself as irreplaceable. If the maid does her job too well, the housewife cannot pride herself in being unique. She harasses the maid in order to find fault with her. Women are abruptly stripped of their femininity at menopause. Still young, she loses her sexual attraction and fertility. Through the eyes of society and her own eyes, sexual attraction and fertility offer a woman the justification for her existence and her chances of happiness. With her future taken from her, she still has half her life to live. Women are haunted at the thought of aging. The mature man is engaged in more important enterprises than those of love. The alterations of his face and body does not destroy his possibilities of being physically attractive. The woman has counted on her sexual attributes far more than man has. She has counted on her sexual attributes to keep her husband, to be assured of his protection, and to succeed in most jobs she holds. What will become of her when she no longer has a hold on her husband through her appearance? Her man's mediation has been the only way that she can have any hold on the world. The woman wonders this as she powerlessly witnesses the degradation of her body. She fights it, but dyes, peeling, and plastic can never do more than prolong her dying youth. Anxiety grips the middle-aged woman whose life is already finished, even though death is not imminent. Instead of fighting against despair, she often chooses to intoxicate herself with despair. She rehashes grievances and regrets. She becomes morbidly jealous of her husband. She is jealous of his friends, sisters, and job. She accuses some rival of being responsible for all her problems. Her children are old enough to not need her. Relieved of her duties, she finally discovers her freedom. However, once she finally has attained freedom, there is nothing more for her to do. At 50, she is in full possession of her strength. She feels rich and experienced. This is the age when men rise to the highest positions. But as for her, she is forced into retirement. There is no one who requires her devotion anymore. Between 40 and 50, when the mother sees her little ones become adults, it is at that instant they are escaping her that she passionately attempts to live through them. Her attitude is different depending on if she wants to be saved through a son or a daughter. She usually puts her strongest hope in her son. Here she hopes her son finally comes to her as an adult to be her liberator, to give her the treasures her husband was never able to satisfy her with. He will defend her against her husband's supremacy. She puts herself in her son's hands with as much fervor as a lover. In exchange for this gift, she counts on being raised to the right hand of this God, her son. The mother believes she has acquired holy rights by the simple fact of giving birth to him. But the mother remains unsatisfied, even if she admires her son with incredible pride. She still wants to feel indispensable to her God. The daughter-in-law will strip the mother of her functions. She feels hostility towards this stranger who takes her son from her. Her son owes his mother his life. What does her son owe this stranger he just met? The mother will impatiently wait for the daughter-in-law to be revealed as an impostor. She spies on her daughter-in-law, criticizes her. In her grown daughter, the mother will find a double. The mother who passionately identifies with her daughter is just as tyrannical as she would be with a son. The mother wants to relive her youth through her. She will choose a son-in-law who conforms to the perfect husband she never had. She will easily imagine somewhere in her heart that it is she he is marrying. Through her daughter, she will satisfy her old desires for wealth, success, and glory. It is rare for a girl to put up with this kind of guardianship from her mother indefinitely. The girl rebels from her mother. Then the mother who began cherishing her son-in-law will become hostile to him. It takes a mother a rare mixture of generosity and detachment to find enrichment in her children's lives without becoming a tyrant or being tortured by their accomplishments. The grandmother's feelings toward her grandchildren are an extension of those she has for her daughter. She often transfers her hostility onto them. It is not only out of fear of public opinion that so many women force their seduced daughter to have an abortion, to abandon the child, or to do away with it. They are only too happy to keep her from motherhood because they wish to keep the privilege for themselves. The grandmother who identifies with her daughter often welcomes the grandchildren more avidly than her daughter does. The grandmother goes back 20 years in time, and she becomes the woman giving birth again. All the joys of possession and domination of her children from long ago are returning. All the desires of motherhood she had renounced with menopause are miraculously fulfilled. Unfortunately for her, the grandmother is only authorized to play the role of assistant. She feels dethroned. She is also naturally jealous of her son-in-law's mother because she must share the grandchild with her. The older woman realizes she is useless. The children are raised and the husband has become successful, so she must find out how to kill time. She is likely to find relief in social life. She attaches enormous importance to her parties. She goes to every wedding and funeral. She becomes a gossip. She compensates for her inaction by dispensing criticism and advice to those around her, even to those who do not seek it. There are those older women who are involved in charity organizations. They elect a board, discuss its statutes, dispute among themselves, and struggle to keep their prestige over rival associations. No one must steal their poor, their sick, their wounded, their orphans. They would rather leave them to die than yield them to their neighbors. They bless the wars and famines that transform themselves into benefactors of humanity. If it is suggested to the older woman she must begin to move towards the future, she responds sadly, "It's too late." She lacks the drive, confidence, hope, and anger that would allow her to discover new goals in her life. She takes refuge in the routine that has always been her lot. She makes repetition her system. She throws herself into household obsessions. She becomes more deeply religious, rigidly stoic, indifferent, egotistical. Beauvoir says the old woman will find serenity towards the end of her life. She will find peace when death's approach frees her from anxiety about the future. With her husband often older than her, she will watch his decline in revenge. When her husband loses his public functions, he becomes useless, while his wife at least continues to run the home. Proud of her independence, the elderly woman towards the end of her life will finally begin to view the world through her own eyes. Those who have women's confidence, like doctors, priests, and social workers, know that complaint is the commonest mode of expression for women. Women friends groan together about their ills and men in general. Women's furious despair rejects all solutions, for no solution is acceptable. She wants to live her situation exactly as she lives it, in impotent anger. Since childhood, she has protested against her condition. It is because her life takes place against a background of groundless revolt that she cries so easily. She was promised compensation if she abandoned herself in the hands of a man that would be returned to her 100-fold. She considers herself duped. Her husband is the perfect victim to rise up against concretely, because he embodies the masculine universe. It is through him the male society took the woman in hand and duped her. He bears the weight of the world. If things go wrong, it is his fault. When he comes home in the evening, she complains to him about everything. She wants him to feel guilty. Ironically, the hostility she feels for her husband binds her to him instead of moving her away from him. She wants the man she hates nearby to make him pay. Her supreme consolation is to set herself up as martyr. While more or less acknowledging men's supremacy and accepting their authority, she will contest their reign tooth and nail. She lies to keep her man and ensure her daily bread. Women will be intentionally late to spite their man. Women will cheat on their man not for pleasure, but for the sake of revenge. Beauvoir talks about women's attempt to convert their prison into heaven. There are women who attempt to attain salvation on their own. They try to achieve transcendence while in an imminent state. Beauvoir says that we see it in the narcissist, the woman in love, and the mystic. Commentating on how women become narcissistic, Beauvoir says it is because a woman is forbidden activities that involve strength and energy, and because she is reduced to nothing, that she fiercely limits her interests to herself alone. She gives herself extreme importance because no important object is accessible to her. The narcissistic woman will be incapable of love. The woman who is truly in love forgets herself, but the narcissistic woman cannot forget herself. Society life is important to narcissistic women. They need gazes to contemplate them, ears to listen to them. They need the widest possible audience. And nothing will give the narcissist deeper satisfaction than devoting herself publicly to the theater. Beauvoir discusses the relationship between narcissistic women and erotomania. Erotomania involves the delusional belief that someone is in love with them despite contrary evidence. It is significant that 9 out of 10 patients with illusions of being loved are women. They are clearly seeking in their imaginary lover the culmination of their narcissism. They want their man to be endowed with the supreme qualities, and that their ideal love sees her with irresistible virtues and superior to all other women. This narcissistic drama plays itself out at the expense of real life. The narcissist loses all hold on the concrete world and doesn't care about establishing any real relationship with others. She refuses to accept she can be seen other than as she shows herself. She no longer listens, but only talks. Her vanity is never satisfied. The older she grows, the more anxiously she seeks praise and success. The next category of women who attempt to convert their prison into heaven is the woman in love. The word love has not the same meaning for both sexes. Love is merely one occupation among many in the life of the man, while it is life itself for the woman. Men in love do not abandon themselves completely. The woman they love is merely one value among others. In contrast, the woman in love completely offers herself for the benefit of her master. The woman dreams of being infused with the superior male being. She wants to melt into him, forget herself in his arms. She exalts him. She exalts him as a supreme reality, as a god. Love becomes a religion for her. She wants to abandon herself to a man in order to save herself. To achieve this union with man, she wants to feel necessary by responding to her lover's demands. The more demands the man makes, the more fulfilled the woman feels. She tries to be everything for him. As long as she is necessary for her beloved, she feels completely justified. She savors peace and happiness. She feels exalted at the right hand of a god. But no man is truly God, so this extreme happiness does not last. She creates a hell for herself. She becomes tortured by incredible jealousy. Everything he does that does not involve her, she sees as an abandonment of her. She demands that he see her as necessary for him, the same way she sees him as necessary for herself. But this is no man's desire. So she suffers or lies to herself. It is not up to the man to justify the existence of the woman who worships him. Placing absolute value on the loved one results in a heartbreaking disappointment for the woman to discover her idol's weaknesses and mediocrity. She forbids him to show weakness. For a fallen god is not a man, but an impostor. When the idol is no longer worshipped, he has to be trampled upon. The third route that women go down to try to convert their prison into heaven is the route of piety. Beauvoir says, love has been assigned to woman as her supreme vocation. When she addresses it to a man, she is seeking God in him. If circumstances deny her human love, she will choose to worship God himself. The flirt, the lover, and the indulgent woman become religious around menopause. Women find a solid recourse against men through God. Male's pride becomes a sin. The passivity to which woman is doomed is seen as holy. Reciting her rosary by the fire, she knows she is closer to heaven than her husband who is out at political meetings. Young girls and adolescent women throw themselves into religious devotion with an infinitely greater fervor than their brothers. God's gaze that transcends all humility humiliates the boy's arrogance. However, Beauvoir does not see this as a legitimate life path due to her atheism. To overcome the patriarchy, Beauvoir describes her notion of the independent woman. The way for women to escape slavery, says Beauvoir, is through positive action into human society. Work alone can guarantee her concrete freedom and transcendence. Beauvoir lists obstacles to women's independence. She mentions the obstacle of men wanting to love a slave and not a peer, the obstacle of a husband asking his wife to give up her career. If she refuses, she is condemned to being alone. The obstacle of a man expecting her to run the house and oversee the care and raising of children. She does not want her husband to be deprived of marrying a real woman. She wants to be elegant, a good housekeeper, and devoted mother as wives traditionally are. Taught to respect male authority, she may still believe that man takes first place. Beauvoir says during her studies and in the early decisive years of her career, it is rare for the woman to be able to make full use of her possibilities. She will likely be hindered by her friends and family because they will not support her career efforts as they respect a man's. Her female friends who are married are a temptation for the woman, who strives to ensure her success alone. It seems to her that by advancing further in her career, she will either displease men in general or humiliate her husband or lover by being too dazzling a success. Because of an inferiority complex from upbringing, the woman easily settles for a mediocre success. She often considers the very fact of earning her own living a great enough feat. In trying to go further, the woman is afraid of failing miserably. She is bothered that no one has confidence in her.